once again, I'm sorry for being late. Today was a crazy, crazy day. So I thought about actually postponing these, but that meant I would have to do a lot more breakdowns in a single day, and then nah. So Mateusz Rebecki versus Chris Duncan. Oof, this one is an interesting one. Because Chris Duncan always finds a way to actually win when I feel like he shouldn't win, right? I don't know how many times I've picked against Chris Duncan, and somehow he finds a way to actually get it done. And but on the other hand, man, Rebecki is this talented fighter. Like a lot of people against Makdekbag or Obai, where like, nah, Orobai is going to run through this guy, and Tuesday Rich said hi. What up, what up, what up, my guy? Welcome to the stream. Um, Tuesday Rich, Duncan is the real Gilly Goose. I agree, man. Like he wins fights that I feel like he shouldn't be winning, right? So Tuesday Rich, Rebecca with a gas tank is the goat. Yeah, I 100% agree. And as I was saying about Mateusz Rebecki, everyone was like trashing this guy, like Magdebag or Oba is going to run through this guy, man. He's going to destroy him. And I was like, that guys, the same argument that I was making for Hyun Sung Park, I actually made for Mateusz Rebecki when he was fighting Magdebag or Obai. When everyone was like, nah, Orobai is going to run through this guy. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's what's going to happen. And guess what? Rebecki actually came through and he put on one of the best fights we've seen in a very long time. And he actually ended up winning. Chris Duncan was in a similar position, but I think I picked against him. Um, along with a lot of other people, we picked Jordan Vucenic, and we were like, nah, Vucenic is going to win this one. I got this fight wrong. I think I got this one. Yeah, I remember getting this fight wrong. So a lot of people were on Vucenic, including myself, and Chris Duncan found a way to actually get a submission, which is honestly insanely impressive. So we are basically getting two fighters who, in their last fights, were not necessarily supposed to actually win, and they actually got it done. Twizy Rich, I thought Rebecca was minus 250. Um, you mean against Matic Bag or Robai? I don't know. Like, are you sure about that? Because I'm just, my opinion is based off of my experience with my subscribers. Obviously, the comments that I was reading and the interaction that I was having with the subscribers, the sentiment was that Oroba is going to run through him, right? But maybe that sentiment was not shared by everyone. But as far as I can remember, I thought Orobai was the favorite in that particular fight. But it is what it is. But still, I feel like a lot of people are underestimating Rebecca in that particular fight. As far as I can remember, at the very least, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my memory is wrong. But it's yeah, a lot of people did take Orobai. Yeah, that's the fight that I'm actually talking about. I felt like everyone was basically uh, clowning Rebecki and saying, well, he's going to lose. Similarly with Vucenic, they were like, I mean, Chris Duncan against Vucenic. We were all saying, well, Vucenic is going to beat this guy and all those type of things. Not all of us, obviously, there are those that didn't actually pick Vucenic. In this particular fight, Chris Duncan has a massive reach advantage, a 5.5-inch reach advantage, which is going to be pretty, pretty massive in this particular fight. Tuesday Rich, wow, you're right, my bad. No, nah, it's cool, man. That's why I'm like, a lot of Tuesday Rich. I thought he was the favorite. 90% on Oroba is crazy. Where did you see that? I'm on what do you call it? On Topology. Is that where you checked it? But yeah, that fight, like a lot of people were on Magdek Bag or Oroba, and like even in my breakdowns, people were disagreeing with everything I was saying. Like, nah, fam, Oroba, yeah, yeah, that's a good place to actually analyze the confidence of a lot of people. So yeah, a lot of people went with Oroba, and I was basically making the argument for Rebecki, and he actually came through. So we are basically looking at two guys who were underdogs in their previous fights and actually came through, in a big way. I mean, Rebecki actually got a decision in a slugfest. Um, Duncan got a finish via submission. So let's focus on this particular fight. Duncan is going to have a 5.5-inch reach advantage. Finishing ability, both of them are pretty good at finishing fights. Duncan has a 77% finishing rate. Rebecca has an 80% finishing rate. Tuesday Rich, those odds are crazy considering how good he looked before the Diego fight. Yeah, I think a lot of people changed their minds. It's like Asu Almabayev, right? For some reason, a lot of people were trashing the guy, all because he lost to Manel Kape, and Manel Kape had to cheat in order to win that fight. So if somehow you get beaten in a fight, it seems like a lot of the MMA community actually ends up feeling like you're trash. So that's why it's always important to not necessarily go with the majority of what everyone is saying. Focus on what you feel like are good qualities or other good things to actually focus on and actually get it done. Um, let me see. Cheesy Rich like Talbot too. Yeah, even though I didn't pick Talbot, I actually did say, even if you go back, I actually did say that, Talbot can come back and actually show us that, he actually improved. But I had the view that the Talbot was not necessarily focusing on his training, and he actually came through. But if you go back and check my upsets predictions, I actually did predict that there's a high possibility Talbot could get the upset. I've Yeah, I did upsets prediction for that particular fight. Yeah, I did predict that Peyton Talbot had a high probability of getting the upset. Right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, on the video section of the channel for every single card I post on Friday though. That's the last video I post. On Friday, it's upsets predictions where I'm like, there's a high, medium, or low possibility for an upset, and I did say Peyton Talbot has a high probability of getting the upset. Tuesday Rich, Aswal Mabayev too. Yeah, I actually picked him, so I'm proud of that one. Tuesday Rich, I'm agreed. Yeah. Tuesday Rich, I was unsure on that. Lima Talbot fight felt like 50-50 to me. Yeah, in analysis, that's how I felt about the fight. But clearly, Lima was overrated. Or maybe he wasn't overrated. Maybe Peyton Talbot is that good. But Lima's decisions in the fight were pretty frustrating to look at, you know? But yeah, it didn't look 50-50 during the fight, but pre-fight, I generally felt like it was going to be 50-50. And based on previous performances, I was like, has to actually win this one. But let me actually not go too much into that particular fight. Back to Mateusz Rebecki versus Chris Duncan. Both of them are pretty good as far as output goes. They have pretty decent output. I mean, Rebecki has a slightly higher output. Um, and as far as defense, both of them are pretty decent as well. But I feel like Duncan might have a bit of an advantage, but probably that has to do with his performance against Orobai because man, these dudes went to war, right? So technical striking, I don't know, man. I feel like Rebecki might be better on the feet. Correct me if that's my view at the very least. Grappling, both of them are pretty decent, but defensively, I feel like Rebecki might be a little bit better, even though both of them don't have the best defense. I think defensively, I think Rebecki might be better, but on the ground, both of them are pretty decent. So I generally could see this fight actually playing out even on the ground, because especially because both of them are easy to take down. But offensively, I feel like Rebecki might have the advantage. So as far as offensive grappling, both of them are pretty good, but I think Rebecki might be a little bit better offensively and defensively. Even though defensively both of them are not particularly that great, but still they make up for their defensive deficiencies offensively. Um, who you who do you pick, Tito Ortiz or Brock Lesnar? I don't know. Brock Lesnar. Why are you asking that? Shout out to you. So I feel like defensively both of them are not particularly great, but slightly leaning towards Rebecki defensively. Offensively, I think Rebecki is a little bit better. He attempts a little bit more submissions. He shoots. Maybe Duncan is a little bit more active as far as shooting takedowns, but I don't know, man. As far as scrambles go, I'm leaning heavily towards Rebecki. I think he's going to be better offensively because both of them are not particularly great defensively. But still, even via defense, I'm still leaning towards Rebecki. Striking, it might get a little bit tricky because obviously Chris Duncan has a reach advantage in this particular fight. So that might play a huge role um, as far as the striking goes. But I mean, Orobai had a reach advantage, if I'm not mistaken. And Rebecki still found a way to actually close the distance. So as far as who's the better striker, I generally am going to give it to Rebecki. But at the same time, um, Orobai was losing to Uros Medic on the feet, right? So maybe I'm overvaluing Mateusz Rebecki's performance against Magdalberg Orobai because Orobai we might think like he that was an incredible fight, but I think we might be overvaluing that performance purely because it was back and forth, and we are like, okay, he's an incredible striker, whereas he probably wasn't. It was just because Orobai was not that high of a level of a striker. Because once again, if you go back and look at it, and granted, Magdalene Orobai was coming in on short notice against Uros Medic, right? So you can make that argument, or that's why he didn't look that great on the feet against Uros Medic, but still he was still losing on the feet, in my opinion. So yeah, it might get tricky. Chris Duncan has a reach advantage. Chris Duncan is a little bit decent up defensively, both of them. But yeah, my subscribers and I are going with Mateusz Rebecki. I'm going to respond to everyone if you once I'm done with this analysis. So yeah, I'm going with Mateusz Rebecki. I think on the ground he's going to have a bit of an advantage offensively. Defensively, both are not great, but I still feel like Rebecki might be a little bit better defensively as well. On the feed, might get tricky. I feel like the reach advantage is huge. 5.5 inch reach advantage is huge. It's definitely going to play a factor, especially because I feel like both of them have more or less the same amount of volume as far as striking. Defensively, I don't know. I feel like they're both pretty decent, but now coming to think of it, as I'm breaking down this particular fight, I'm looking back and I'm like, man, Orobai struggled against Uros Medic on the feed, right? Obviously, it was 5 days notice or something less than that, 2 days notice. I can't remember. So of course, Orobai will look horrible, especially upper weight class. Um, so maybe you can make that argument, but still, Uros Medic was actually outclassing him in that particular fight. So maybe we are overvaluing that performance against Orobai on the feed. I guess this, as time progresses, we will have a clearer picture. Let me respond to comments and then go to the last fight. Um, the Sigma in charge. If it goes past round two, Rebecca gonna be gassed. Huh? That's interesting. Possibly, possibly. Who is your favorite boxer of all time? I don't know, Muhammad Ali. I don't watch boxing, so I mean, I'm going to say Muhammad Ali, as well, purely because his values align with mine. Um, Mamon, the best striker is located on the top of PF. On the top of your head. Okay, thank you for that. The Sigma in charge. I can see Duncan TKO on Rebecki round three. Hmm, interesting. Possible. Possible. We have two underdogs who found a way to actually win, and in this situation, Duncan is the underdog once again. Who is the best MMA fighter from your country? Currently, is the middleweight champion Dricus Duplessis. It's not my opinion. He has the belt. So, Tuesday Rich, Orobai isn't that well rounded in my opinion. Seemed like Rebecki was worried about the grappling cause. If it's just the striking, he should KO him on paper. Interesting analysis. I fully agree with that. Tuesday Rich, both Orobai and Rebecki fade pretty hard. I feel like Duncan can win 2, 3, maybe depends what Rebecca pulls up. Hmm, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Drinkers by Miles, who even come closer. Drinkers by Miles, who even comes close. Okay, yeah. The Sigma in charge. Hot take, but I feel that Duncan has more power. Hmm. That is a hot take because I think Rebecca is going to have more power, but it's cool. I mean, Chris Duncan has 54% TKOs, so maybe you might be right. Whereas Rebecca has 45% TKOs, and Rebecca has 35% submissions. Chris Duncan has 23% submissions. So based on statistics, you might be right. Um, Tuesday Ridge, Orobai was quite gassed versus Brenner. Yeah, Brenner started to outgrapple him cause he gassed. Oof, this is going to be a very this is going to be a very tricky one to actually call. Um, I'm still going with Rebecki. I think he's going to be a little bit better. I'm just worried about the 5.5-inch reach advantage. I hope Rebecki will be able to close the distance. Both of them are actually good at finishing fights, so that also worries me, especially because of the gas tank of Rebecki. But yeah, I'm going with Rebecki. I'm still scared. I'm not gonna lie to you. Have you been in Draker's gym? It has many other African fighters. Yeah, I've been there once prior to him becoming a champion. I was supposed to do something with him before he became a champion, and afterwards he's been hard to get a hold of. So yeah. To the Ridge, I think Rebecca can win 1, 2 or finish early, but I think if not, the Duncan can turn up. Hmm. I agree with that. I just also feel like the pace also it affects how the fight plays out. Like for example, a lot of people accuse Hamza Chimaev of having bad cardio, but they don't take into consideration the pace at which he's fighting, right? And people like, for example, Kamaru Usman, I don't think, even though people will say, yeah, if it was 5 rounds and everything like that, Usman would have won. Potentially, who knows? But the pace, it's similar with Gilbert Burns. The pace that Hamza Chimaev puts on these guys also tires them out. It's not like it's a one-way street, right? Of course, his opponent might not be as tired because maybe then they might not have exerted as much energy. But I think it comes down to also pace. So if you fight at the pace that Rebecki and Orobai were fighting in their last fight, of course you're going to get tired. But I get what you're saying. Um, it's not a good look. So I guess we'll see. I don't know if Duncan would be able to go through such a slugfest. So The slugfest that Rebecki and Orobai went through, I don't know if Duncan lost in that kind of a setting, but I guess we'll see, man. I guess we'll see. Um, Let me see. How cool is that? How cool it's that tell us one interesting story from there. And I don't have a lot of interesting stories, man. Like I didn't go there for a long period of time. Like I went there with the intention to actually cover Dracus Duplessis' career, and then I was told, well, there's a production. I think Netflix. There's a crew that after he became a champion, they stopped responding. They started telling me about paying for interviews. So, as far as the gym, I don't know. It's like an open area with mats. I think more or less like every other gym. And I went there at the time where they were closed. Um, so I didn't see their kickboxing section. I think they have a kickboxing section. Yeah, I didn't see a lot there. Just like the area where they normally train MMA. Um, I don't know. There isn't a lot to tell about that. I met a couple of local champions, but that's as far as it goes. Like a lot of the champions from South Africa, I've interviewed them. I stopped, but yeah, that's as far as I can say. There's nothing really that I can add to that. Elijah Youngblood, Duncan puppy. What does that mean? Is it a wolf or a puppy or a dog? Oh, Duncan is a dog. Oh, okay. Twizy Rich. I think Rebecca wins, but I'm definitely worried. I'm with you there. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm also worried. Guys, I have one more fight to go. I've never actually broken down fights this late. Do you know Peter Masilela? I think I've heard of him. The left back football player. I don't watch football, so I wouldn't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. Shoshat McGee, Rebecca by KO, dude can anti wrestle and big power. Um, yeah, we've been going back and forth about this particular fight, my guy. To Shoshat McGee, just that I can't repeat. Like we've been doing this for like 22 minutes. As I've been responding to comments, a couple of people have been making pretty decent points. Like for example, Orobai struggled. Let me just give you a summary of the points, the back and forth that we've been having throughout this whole breakdown. So Orobai struggled against on the feet against Uros Medic. Of course, Uros Medic was coming. Orobai was coming in on like 5 days notice or 2 days notice or something like that. Cool, we understand, but he still struggled against Uros Medic on the feet. So I feel like we're putting too much weight into Rebecca's performance against Orobai on the feet, right? Another issue is gas, right? Um, on the and then on top of that, what do you call him? Chris Duncan has a 5.5-inch reach advantage. They have more or less the same amount of volume. I think Chris Duncan is decent defensively as far as striking goes. Um, I'm still going with Rebecki. I feel like he is a little bit better. Um, when it comes to the grappling, I feel like both of them are not particularly great defensively, but offensively, I'm leaning heavily towards Rebecki. I think offensive wrestling, or rather offensive grappling, I think he's a little bit better. Um, Even though I feel like, what do you call him? Duncan shoots a lot more takedowns, but I still feel like offensively and a little bit defensively, I still lean towards Rebecki. But I think it's going to be very interesting if it goes past the second round. So that's a summary of the breakdown. Um, Bob, can you do a backflip? Nah, I can't, man. Trey, Hamza gonna be middleweight champion soon. I'm with you there. Do you watch Mojad channel? Who does animation videos on UFC? Yeah, Mujahid. I actually, yeah, I do watch that channel. I like it. Short Short McGee, Duncan gets dropped all the time. Face a face that likes fist. I mean, you remember we all picked um, Jordan Vucenic to actually beat Chris Duncan, and it didn't go so well for us, you know. So I'm not going to count out Chris Duncan. I think on the feed it's going to get interesting. On the ground, I'm leaning heavily towards Mateusz Rebecki. So I get what you mean though. Yusu Fox, Albazi versus Tyra cancelled. Albazi out. Yeah, I saw that. I actually broke down the fight impromptu. I don't know if that's the right word. So I have to just change the thumbnail and the title of the video. How fun is that? Come on, I don't know. Yeah, it is actually funny. Guys, I need to go to the last fight, which is Brenner versus Ribovics. If you want to join me, let's go there. I love and appreciate all of you. Until then, deuces.